Our next presentation is from the Ontario Undergrad Student Alliance. Rylan, Kinnon, and Alysha Lee. Take a seat, make yourself comfortable. Thanks for coming in a little early.
No problem.
Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes to make your remarks to the committee, which will be followed by up to 5 minutes of questioning. This round of questioning will come from the government side. Please identify yourselves for answered and then proceed. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having us. We're the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance. Thanks to the committee for having us this afternoon. My name is Alysha Lee. I'm a student and Vice President of University Affairs at the University Students' Council at Western University and also the President of OUSA.
And my name is Rylan, Kinnon. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance. I'm currently finishing my MPA at Queen's University and did my undergrad at U of T.
The Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance represents the interests of 155,000 students at 8 universities across the province of Ontario. Our vision is for an accessible, affordable, accountable, and high-quality post-secondary education in Ontario. To achieve this vision, we partner with government, opposition parties, sector stakeholders, and others to develop solutions to issues facing students in Ontario. Though we are living in a difficult economic circumstances, it must be noted that higher education is not just an expense, it's an investment. The lifetime income potential of a university graduate is up to $1 million higher than a high school graduate. It is perhaps for this reason that despite only comprising a quarter of the population, university graduates pay over half of the income tax collected by the province. Those with post-secondary education had only a 4.7% unemployment rate, less than half the rate of those without education. This gap will only widen as Ontario moves forward towards 70 to 85% of all jobs requiring post-secondary education. Today, we'd like to talk to this committee about the important investment this budget has made to students, but also how money could be used more effectively. At a time when participation gap between high and low income Ontarians at our universities is widening, it is important to make sure every dollar spent on student financial assistance is going to those who need it most. The first topic we'd like to touch on today is the Ontario Tuition Grant. The government recognized the importance of investing in future generations of Ontario workers by creating a 30-off Ontario Tuition Grant this past year. In addition to helping 200,000 eligible students receiving $800 in additional grant funding this year, this program will grow next year, reach even more students, and provide over $1,600. Though many have pointed to ways the program could improve, which we will address momentarily, it must be recognized that this program is a significant investment in students and their families. The tuition grant is particularly useful to a few types of students. Middle-income students who do not qualify for all the other grant programs offered by the Ontario Student Assistance Plan, or OUSA, now receive non-repayable assistance. Additionally, debt-averse students who want to access grants without taking on Ontario student loans are eligible for the Ontario Tuition Grant, making it the only grant program available to these students. This is important, particularly because Aboriginal, low-income, and first-generation students are all more likely to be debt-averse. However, there are many ways the program could be improved. The first is to ensure that Aboriginal students and students with dependents are adequately supported by the grant. Since the grant is only available to students in their first 4 years out of high school, it is not supporting students who need to delay going to university. Studies show that Aboriginal students and students with dependents often take an extra year or two to attend post-secondary. These students also tend to have the most significant unmet financial need. Extending an extra year of eligibility would help the students who have the highest financial need. The government has already taken a similar step, extending an extra year of eligibility to students with disabilities. Ontario students ask that the same measure be taken for Aboriginal students and students with children. This is a small population, and the cost of implementing this would be marginal. OUSA estimates only $5 to $10 million to increase the equity of the Ontario Tuition Grant Program. One last point about the tuition grant is that it points to a larger need to control the increasing cost of tuition. It will only take 9 years for tuition fees discounted by the grant to reach what they currently are today. Essentially, the value of the tuition grant to students will become completely eroded in a decade if the tuition is allowed to increase at 5% annually, despite the fact that it will have a cost-increasing amount of money every year. This is not a sustainable path for the government or for students. For the government's investment to be worthwhile in the long term, tuition growth must be slowed.
So the second thing that we wish to speak to today is the Ontario Student Opportunity Grant. Though it has attracted fewer headlines than the Ontario Tuition Grant, the Ontario Student Opportunities Grant, OUSA, is currently the largest and most progressive grant program Ontario offers. This program caps student debt at $7,300 per year and reaches over 93,000 students annually. If a student's parents don't earn very much money, they are assessed for the maximum loan of $12,240. But every dollar after that, every dollar over $7,300 is converted to a grant, capping the maximum debt for a student of a 4-year program at $29,200. Without OUSA, low-income and mature university students would owe closer to $49,000 upon completion of their undergraduate degree. Research on student financial assistance has noted that OUSA has played a key role in keeping student debt in Ontario from growing considerably over the last decade, making Ontario only one of 3 provinces to avoid substantial growth in student debt over this time period. Given that the use of student loans has increased over the last several years, OUSA is more important than ever in preventing students from graduating with unreasonable debt levels. Students with more debt are less likely to invest, buy homes, purchase cars, and generally contribute to Ontario's economy. Debt has also been shown to affect graduation and dropout rates. OUSA is thus not only a safeguard of Ontario's student debt level, but also an important piece of Ontario's economic future. Students thus recommend that the government maintain the cap on student debt provided by OUSA at $7,300. We also would like to talk about tax credits, specifically Ontario's education tax credits. Though they are one of the largest investments in student aid that the province makes, they are also one of the least effective at improving the accessibility of post-secondary education for Ontarians. Last year, the Ontario government spent close to $310 million on tuition and education tax credits. Studies show that of this pool, an average of $2,000 is claimed by students from the highest income bracket. In contrast, students from the lowest income bracket claim an average of $520 annually. This is mostly due to the fact that as an income tax credit, a student needs to earn enough income in a given year and thus pay enough income tax to be able to benefit from the credit. Only 1 in 3 students makes enough money to claim the income credit in a given year. The other 2 students have to wait until they have a well-paying job to benefit. Given that the participation gap between low and high income students continues to rise in Ontario, this is a particular concern. Furthermore, tax credits can only be claimed at the end of the academic year. Given that tuition payment deadlines are often in August or September, the funds provided through tax credits do not help meet the cost of their education when they are due. This government already proposed in the 2007 election platform a solution endorsed by every student group in the province. Eliminate the tuition and education tax credits and move them into upfront grants. This solution was reaffirmed this year by the Drummond Report, which noted many of the arguments I have just made. Students understand that financial assistance is expensive and that the government cannot initiate new spending. However, the funds necessary to do everything we have highlighted today and more are available if the promise to eliminate future tax credits is fulfilled. Thus, students recommend that the government cease issuing new tuition education tax credits, and move year-to-year savings into existing financial assistance programs offered through both the Ontario Student Assistance Plan or the Ontario Tuition Grant.
The last thing we would like to touch on is the need to design a reform strategy for post-secondary education in Ontario. There are a number of ways in which Ontario can increase the quality of education in its post-secondary institutions without substantially increasing costs. The Drummond Report made many suggestions on how to do this. OUSA has recommended means by which to do this, and universities, colleges, and other student organizations have their own ideas for reform. Ideas like creating a teaching-focused faculty stream would yield productive gains in the hundreds of millions of dollars while increasing the quality of education. What hasn't happened in Ontario yet is a discussion on how we will ensure that we provide equitable access to post-secondary educations required to succeed in the new global economy. Students recommend that the government facilitate a sector and province-wide discussion on how to improve our post-secondary education system while restraining cost growth.
So on behalf of our members, we'd like to thank you for having us to come and speak today. We'd be happy to welcome any questions that you might have about our proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Nackby.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate both of you coming. Thank you. You did a fantastic job.
You're welcome.
In your presentation. I'm going to focus my questions on the 30% tuition grant, a big part of your submission as well. As you know, one of the fundamental decisions the government has made in this particular budget, despite tough economic times and fiscal situation, is to continue with the 30% tuition grant. It was a big part of the Liberal Party's election platform, was the most costliest of the platform items, and we within 2 months implemented that in place as well. Do you think that type of a tuition grant produces significant savings for students?
Well, we believe that obviously it has had benefit for students. $800 to $1,600 for a student paying an average tuition of, I believe, about $6,500 in Ontario is substantial. We believe it's a great investment in increasing the affordability and accessibility of education in Ontario. With that said, we do believe that it could be improved. Specifically, in terms of our recommendations, we believe it could be better improved to help Aboriginal students increase their post-secondary attainment rate. We believe it could help dependent students increase their post-secondary attainment rate, and we believe we provided some recommendations on how that could be done today. So students appreciate the grant. It is very helpful in increasing the affordability, but it could be further improved to increase the accessibility and equity of post-secondary education in Ontario.
No, and I appreciate that and your recommendations there. Do you agree with the direction in terms of the tuition grant where it's focused on low-income to mid-income families? I think it's up to $160,000 of parents' income. Is that the right approach in terms of giving that tuition grant?
Well, we believe that certainly, especially low-income families, do need to have targeted financial assistance, because if you look at the stats, people in the highest income quartile are, I believe, 4 times more likely to attend post-secondary education than those in the lowest income quartile. So we do need to make sure that we are providing that income quartile the funds, grants, et cetera, that allow them to achieve a post-secondary credential. And also in terms of middle to low income students, one benefit we see of the Ontario tuition grant is that it provides funding to students who previously would not use OSAP or qualify for OSAP to make their post-secondary education more affordable.
One of the themes that we're hearing in these the deputations is around inequities in the society and how we can use this budget to reduce or hopefully eliminate the inequities in the society. There has been a suggestion made that the best way to use this money that is given out through 30% off is just not use any eligibility criteria, but just give a blanket fee reduction to all students regardless of income background. Do you think that kind of approach will help in addressing inequity issues, or the approach that we've taken, i.e. focusing and targeting on low income to mid income, is a better way of dealing with better accessibility for those who are in low income thresholds?
Well, I would say again that we do believe that the OTG can be improved, but we don't believe that basically putting the funds that are currently in the Ontario tuition grant into an overall tuition increase is a good way to improve accessibility. Going back to what I said previously about who actually attends post-secondary education, students in the highest income quartile are far more likely to attend post-secondary education than those in the lowest income quartile. Thus, and then there's also an issue in terms of the benefits that you actually would achieve if you spend all this money providing every student in Ontario with a tuition reduction. The amount per student is going to be much lower. So if you're giving it to everybody, if you're giving it to students who have no problem affording post-secondary education in the first place, you're not reaching the goal of improving accessibility, increasing equity in the system. In fact, I'd say you'd be probably doing the opposite.
Thank you very much for your submission. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us today.
Nice timing. Right on the money.
Comment, Chair, just off the record, that was also the nicest package, the nicest presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass that on to our communications director. Excellent. I will pass that along.
Thank you so much.
Gratuitous
much for
comments
having
are
us.
always welcome.
I didn't know where this was getting going.
Okay, we